All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. This is the first ever Tuesday slotted live record. And I was really nervous that I was going to say Friday. So we nailed it. This is a success. We're joined today by Matt Ham, who is somebody new in my world, but I'm excited to be getting to know. And I'm grateful that you're here today to share your expertise. We're going to go through your entrepreneurial journey, and you're going to tell us about agents, AI agents, and how they may impact, how they'll definitely impact businesses. But before we dive into all that technical and exciting stuff, you were telling me about some different journeys. One about a recent trip you had to New Zealand and Fiji. And I wanted to ask you, before I ask you the other question that I already gave you, what was the difference in the cultures? You told me about how there was some different like terrain, obviously, and you told me a little bit about how you kind of did the trip differently. But were there differences that you could feel culturally?
Well, yes, but first of all, happy to be here on this Tuesday, Zach. Nice to be talking to you here.
Yeah.
Excited to continue building our relationship as well, as you mentioned. But yeah, no, my wife and I did. We recently took a 2.5 week. We spent about 2 weeks in New Zealand, a few days in Fiji. So I would say that Fiji very much has that, island feel. You're on island time. It's that kind of you're in the middle of nowhere kind of feel. If you've been to a bunch of Caribbean islands or Hawaii, it just operates on a different kind of
Mhm.
scale and everything is laid back there. New Zealand is much more just like a standard kind of country. Obviously, they are an island as well, but it's more of just city specific. When we're in Auckland, it's a little more business, a little more happening. When you're on the South Island, it's a little more of the scenery and nature. So yeah, different kind of people, different kind of cultures for sure.
I've got a completely tangential question here because of a video game I play called Civilization, and you mentioned Auckland, which is a city state in the game, but I don't know what the hell that means in real life. What is Auckland like, and why is it somehow slightly different than like the rest of, I think, Australia and that kind of area?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know the technical definition of a city state. Auckland it's probably the biggest city in New Zealand, I believe. It's where the majority of the international airports are. So, I'm sure there's others, but that's where most flights kind of come in. And it's not the capital, but it, acts as kind of like a functional large city, maybe like New York in the US. So it's got a big commercial hub. There's a big harbor there, ships coming in and out. And an hour or so north, you've got the Bay of Islands, which is just tons of these beautiful little islands. So yeah, I mean it's a nice, fun city to explore. They had some good food. We enjoyed spending a few days there.
Awesome. Favorite travel experience ever?
Oh, that's kind of tough. My wife and I are fortunate to have traveled a good amount internationally. I would say that our favorite types of trips are adventure related. So either going on a multi-day hike or doing a safari. So we've done a few different safaris throughout Africa, and we absolutely love them. Great pros and cons to so many different areas. We've been to Kruger and Sabi Sands in South Africa. We've been to the Serengeti, Tanzania, and on the Kenya side, Masai Mara. But we also like doing multi-day treks. So we've hiked Kilimanjaro. We've gone through Patagonia. We've gone through Huayhuash in South America, down there in Peru. We've done Avenue of the Volcanoes in Ecuador. We've gone out to Annapurna Base Camp in Nepal. So we really love just kind of getting out in nature and experiencing it, as much as possible as it is, and really just kind of moving around. So that's probably our favorite.
So you kind of spilled one of your secrets on how you've approached the travel game. You're trying to get as much of the far travel out of the way as you can before you have your first child, which is on the way, which I think is a wise move. Um, Can you talk a little bit about how you balanced being an entrepreneur with having being able to have so much? I mean, you're not an old dude. You're a young guy, right? And you have a lot of tremendous travel experiences. So, other than the one that you kind of already told me about, like, hey, we've gone abroad on purpose um, because it's going to be harder here in the future. How have you been able to also balance some wonderful travel experiences and a good work-life balance, right? I imagine with what is historically not an easy space to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think all of life is a balance, right? Whether you're talking about nutrition, work, anything like that, So you obviously got the work hard, play hard, common phrase. I do believe in that. I think it's ebbed and flowed throughout, my career. The first business that I owned was, maybe 12 years ago now. And for a while, I was definitely putting in, 6 long days a week. But it wasn't always like that. And, when I approached it from the very start, my goal was to get myself out of the day to day. And so I would say about 3 months in was when we got our very first employee that could take over running that business. And it allowed me to work on the business. That's obviously a very common tactic to build and grow your business, but it's also a good way to improve that work-life balance, right? When you're part of the day-to-day, you're needed on a day-to-day. When you've been able to build to a point where you kind of rise above that and you're building the business, you can take 2 weeks off because it doesn't need to grow, 365 days a year. So I think over the years, especially as my wife got more vacation time in her, more typical job, we've been able to travel more and more, but it's always been a balance for me, and I think all aspects of life are.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's a great transition into your journey a little bit. You alluded already to the fact that you've kind of been an entrepreneur for a bit. I think you said you started your first company about 12 years ago. What about before that? And kind of take us through that pathway, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no,
As far
absolutely.
back as you're willing.
So I have always kind of, done my own thing even before I was a business owner. I started working my sophomore year in high school. The summer after my sophomore year in high school, I started working for like SaaS. It's a software company that was just down the street from my high school. I worked there every summer, and then during my senior year in high school, I just worked there throughout the year. It was a very good first job for me, and one of the things that I think really benefited me is after a year or two of being there, I was essentially put on project work where I could make up what I was working on. And I loved kind of looking at what my role was, which was, repairing computers that were coming back into stock and figuring out, okay, how can we do this more efficiently? How can we do it better, streamline the process? I eventually developed software that would allow the computers to self-test themselves. And so things like that. But I was very fortunate that I had a good manager and second line manager that allowed me that flexibility to kind of make up what I was doing. So after that, I continued working throughout college, and then grad school. I started working for a computer and phone repair company up in New York City. I was going to Columbia at the time. And then after that, I started working for that, phone repair company just to kind of make extra money because I knew it, but I very quickly started kind of running that company with the owner. So after just a few months of being there, I was like, look, we can improve by doing this, this, and that. We can, fix our intake form and make it all digital. We can run Google Ads for marketing. And so after kind of working with him, kind of taking over management of that company, it was maybe a year or two after grad school or something. That's when I started my first company, which was a computer and phone repair store down in Florida. My wife and I moved from New York City down to Florida. So opened that and then just started opening more of them. So we opened multiple stores and we got to 9 locations in multiple states across the East Coast before I eventually exited that. So I would say pretty much from the beginning, even when I had a real job, I was still kind of just doing my own thing, figuring out a goal to go after, building towards that purpose, seeing the results of my actions, and that feedback loop that, just is the entrepreneur's journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, the feedback loop is important. Moving can be important too, and also being willing to be flexible. But before I ask you about what you felt like with moving, something that really stuck out to me was you had the trust of your leaders from, it sounds like, before you even graduated high school, in that you were, you said when you were a sophomore, so 15, 16, you were working in a software company, a SaaS company that was nearby. Um, you were really quickly, it sounds like, able to get your leaders in that organization to see the value of your strategic mind, in that they gave you kind of freedom to produce what you saw to be valuable. And then that repeated again when you were newly out of, I think you said, grad school, and quickly gravitated into like a second in command, or advisory almost position to the leadership of the company. So to me, that sticks out as something that's atypical in individuals. What do you think lended to people's, either what do you think about you lended to others' ability or willingness to trust you?
So probably the first one was a little bit of just naivete on my part, and a good boss, right? I think that it was a good environment. So the company SaaS at the time had been rated like the number one company in the country to work for, like year after year. So it was a very good and healthy environment. In addition to having, just very strong and trusting managers. And so I think that kind of is what enabled me initially there. The second company, when it was a small company, in New York City when I was in grad school, that was a fight. I think that was maybe born out of confidence or cockiness from myself, or whatever you want to call it. But I saw all these things that I could do and I could make better. And it was, probably a multi-year fight with the owner, just kind of leveraging things up. I like to say that he never gave me a raise, but I just kept giving myself raises, and we would just fight about it every time. And, he was not, he's a great guy, not as much of the trusting individual that the first manager was. So everything, I definitely had to take it there. But he did have enough, I guess, faith in me to continue having those conversations, to maintain a good working relationship. And so I think that taught a lot to me about, how things kind of get done and other things of that sort. But it was a good, accomplish the same thing, I guess, but in very different ways at the two jobs.
Tips for managing up then, because that's not an easy thing, especially for people like yourself and like myself, that are driven and have really clear ideas and goals on how things should or could, or how we want them to be. That managing up, those, having those tough conversations when you're not in the authority position, can be challenging. Do you have some tips for folks that are maybe budding entrepreneurs that aren't in their own ship yet?
Yeah, I think, that reminds me of one of the books that's back here. I think my head's covering it, Extreme Ownership. I think that's where they cover that. But it's like managing through the chain, right? I think that if you take ownership of your position, ownership of responsibilities, if you become the example that you want to set, I mean, I think that can help a lot. Obviously you have to have good communication with your superior. You've got to have a superior that it wants to make the right changes, right? I don't think luckily I was working in that second situation. I was working directly with the owner who wants the company to make more money, right? It's not some mid-level manager who wants to protect his job and take credit for what you're doing. It was more of a, look, if you can make me an extra buck, sure, do whatever you want. And that was kind of the approach. So I think focusing on maybe his goals in that regard helped me, right? I knew what he was trying to accomplish. And so if I could align what I was working on towards that goal, it would help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And having the confidence to say, no, 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 you got to trust me here. Because I
Yeah,
think that's a
real
tough.
or not, I was still young, so real or not confidence. But yeah, you do have to go in with that confidence because that's what they're going to look to you for.
Well, and if you're not confident and somebody is pushing back, you don't push, you know? Like for you to be confident enough to be like, no, we're going to have this uncomfortable conversation where I'm going to grow in the company, even though you're resistant to growth and change. Like that requires, it's not a fun, you don't come into work like, I'm going to freaking have this conversation today. I mean, you may be excited about the potential outcome, but the moment is you don't know how people are going to take things.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. It's very true.
So you moved down to Florida, love Florida, and then you said you had like 9 different states or 9 different operations across the East Coast there. um, I kind of have a double-barreled question, if you can believe it, that I'm loading a long one here. uh, What's it like? So I've lived in a bunch of different states through my Domino's program and through my experiences, and obviously you see a bunch of different cultures. What's it like moving and establishing yourself in a new, I'm going to say ecosystem? And the reason I'm going to say that is because it's almost like the people that grow up in the environment and are only from the environment are very specific to the environment. What's it like kind of being an implant in a community? And then what's it like managing operations in multiple different places and having to manage different, you know, well, A, laws in different states, but B, cultures in different states?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. I lived there till I was 18, I think. I spent a year going to Virginia, then I came back and got my degree ultimately in Raleigh before leaving for New York City for grad school. So I was mostly in one place, but from grad school on, I moved around a lot, right? I think that living in New York City is very culturally diverse, obviously. So I think it really breaks you out of that singular environment that you grew up and were raised in, right? It's a higher level of energy. It's a more of a mix and et cetera, et cetera. And I think maybe that got me ready for the next steps. Since that point, I moved around a lot. So at the time, my now wife and I, we were dating and then living together in New York City. We moved down to Florida because she got into med school. So we spent 2 years in Tallahassee. Then we moved to Orlando for 2 years. We lived in Hawaii for a year after that. Then back to New York City before coming down to Atlanta, where we are now. So we did move around quite a bit. And for me, I enjoyed all of them for very different reasons, right? I love the New York City fast-paced life. I liked the Hawaii, barefoot and climbing mountains and surfing in the afternoons. And I like the Atlanta or Raleigh, the typical kind of suburbia life where you've got a house and a car and, in a neighborhood. So I think all of it appeals to me. So I got along with the culture, kind of just fine. I enjoy different aspects of each. As far as managing operations in multiple places, as I mentioned, I think one of my goals from the beginning was to build that scalable system. And so when I opened that first store, I was looking for the employee that could run the day to day. I was looking for the manager that could run the technicians. I built, with the help of developers, we built our own in-house ERP system, point of sale system, ticket management system, whatever you want to call it. That allowed us to, track all the jobs we had, accept payment, take in our marketing forms and respond to them. So we kind of built and in-house those systems. We eventually put security cameras up that you can access online. And so I think from the beginning, my mindset was building this, for scale, right? Whether or not I eventually franchise it, building it for scale and operations. So that allowed me to kind of go to different states, install a manager or a regional manager that I had worked with directly, that I had faith in, right? I think that when I was originally one store in Tallahassee, we had 4 or 5 employees that I worked directly with on a day-to-day basis when I was still fixing things, and built great relationships. And then when we opened up multiple stores, those were the employees that went to different areas. One of the managers moved to Raleigh to open the Raleigh branch. One of them came to Orlando with me and then down to Davie, Florida to run those branches. And so we kind of just built out. We used a system of checks and balances to keep an eye on the cash that was at the store, to keep an eye on, make sure nothing was stolen, make sure things were getting repaired. We used online reports and metrics to track productivity. I would say it's the same types of controls that a Domino's would put in place, just at a much smaller scale. We obviously were, a handful of shops. We didn't have the everything that Domino's has, but it's similar types of things that we were trying to do to keep my finger on the pulse, to figure out what marketing was working and what wasn't, et cetera.
The thing that Domino's has that is slightly different is really just budget, because of the number of different stores and the number of different franchisees. But most franchises are less than 3 stores. So most small businesses that are operating Domino's are more like what you're describing from a business perspective, if not even slightly smaller, more owner operator style. Now there are some that are 100, 200, 250 store franchisees that kind of affect the skew, right? So the median is drastically closer to smaller operations, which again would lend itself to be a similar feeling, I imagine, to what you're describing, in terms of the fact that the owner has to be taking that information and digesting it. Now you are doing kind of the hard part, which is finding the data points to be able to use to make your business better. Domino's presents those for you. It's amazing. It's like, they have their own POS system, and it's like there's all these different points in the operation where data is collected so that you could say this person is doing this, or this person is efficient here, or we need to improve the business here. But it sounds like you were finding that, which was the challenging part. But then everybody else has to figure out, well, how am I going to use it? And how am I going to action people to take that data and be effective with it? Which I think is where the secret sauce in management actually is. Something else stuck out to me about your journey, and I'm going to try to drag us into the AI space here pretty soon. And I didn't anticipate this being such a people-based conversation, quite honestly, although I should have expected it, and I'm excited by it. You're an enigma in the fact that you're very strong technically, to the point where you're very strong in artificial systems, which is, kind of on the tertiary side of like newest technology. But you also have a tremendous strength for being able to identify individuals you trust and upskilling them and then holding them accountable, so much so that you're able to do it at a distance, which is, harder than I can come in and micromanage the hell out of you. So talk a little bit about how again, you've already said you live life balanced, so I think you're going to go in that direction. But talk about how you've achieved this balance of very, very high level technical domain, but also tremendous skill around managing and understanding people.
I think that, like you said, I think that's all of life, right? I think a lot of life is balancing the social interpersonal skills with the technical knowledge. So I've always been a technical person. My master's was in mechanical engineering with a focus in energy systems, not because I ever wanted to be a mechanical engineer, but just because I wanted a technical degree, because that's who I was. I was acing all of those SATs and SAT2s and math, and that's just the direction that I am and my life is headed. I will say that it is a challenge, and was a challenge for me to manage remotely, right? I think that we had good enough systems that The general day-to-day stuff was managed pretty well, but fully inspiring the local store managers to kind of take ownership of the store and do the extra things, beyond what we could directly measure, always being enthusiastic, going the extra mile to try to make the store successful, was difficult. I would say that first round of people that came up with me, they all did a very good job. And I don't know if that's because I was able to spend so much time with them immediately, if I just found a good group of people, but that original group, was very invested in the store. They had, keys and access to everything, and I fully trusted them to manage the store exactly how I would. When you're trying to then raise new regional managers that you haven't had that relationship with, I did struggle with that a little. Probably one of the reasons I eventually sold the stores at 9 instead of, growing at the hundreds was it can be difficult to do some of those things. But yeah, I mean, I find the technical skills, I either am able to build stuff myself, or you work with other people that are very highly specific in their technical domains, which is, what we started to do on the AI side. But then at the same time, you always need those kind of managerial and people skills. So I'm sure there are plenty of HR people out there that excel in that much more than I do. But, I think to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to be well-rounded with everything, right? I think the weakest aspect of running my own business that I had was on the marketing side, which is why I dove so heavily into digital marketing when I opened my stores originally, which actually led the way to my next company, which was a digital marketing agency, right? It's the last thing that you'd expect someone like me, if you knew me growing up, to do. But I think I trained myself so hard at digital marketing because that was a weakness that I was able to run that successfully for other businesses. I have since got back to what I think I do best, which is look to improve systems and processes using technology. And today that's building AI agents that can help businesses build and scale their business, right? But you mentioned the things that we set up that Domino's had given you, which is the analyzing the different data points and building those structures and building those systems, right? I think that's always been who I am at my core. That's why I excelled in that business, because I was building the systems, the structures. And it's the same thing that we're doing in the AI space. We're building AI agents that can help you, improve your processes, improve your business functionality through a variety of ways.
Well, that's a good transition into AI. And if you could talk a little bit about how, well, before I'm going to do two things again. One, give one last like fleeting thought for if there are folks that are technical out there, what's a tip for them to be able to have some more tact on the social side? And then I'll take us into AI.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one. I think everyone is technical in some capacity, and everyone has that social side skills in some capacity, right? I think it's one of the Richard Branson books, where he's talking about a customer service incident on Virgin Airlines, and he's like, well, my entire company's fate is now riding on how this one employee's parents raised her. Right. And I don't know if it was him or, Starbucks CEO that basically said you hire for social skills and you teach the technical, right? That's kind of the entrepreneurs that I came up reading and understanding, which it's difficult to teach some of those things, and it's better to hire for the technical, right? To improve your own social skills, challenge yourself, go into uncomfortable situations, right? The measurement of your success is the amount of uncomfortable situations you put yourself in throughout life, right? I think that doing and facing those kind of things head on is the way that you might improve some of those skills.
Great. Well, that's a wonderful end to a bunch of emotional intelligence based conversation. Let's talk about some technical stuff, man. What the fuck is an AI agent? So their AI systems in general came out, and then within the past few months, AI agents have become something different. What is the difference?
Yeah, so an AI agent is essentially, some type of system or AI that can take action, that can reason and then take action, right? So AI is a very broad term. When we talk about AI, a lot of people, talk about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is an LLM, right? That's an aspect, a large language model. That's an aspect of AI, which is basically meant to analyze human conversation and predict what's going to happen next. So LLMs were made because they essentially read the entire internet. They read trillions and trillions of conversations, etc. And they said, okay, I know how language works. When somebody says hi, usually the response is something like this. It's a hi back, it's a how are you, it's whatever, right? They've recognized the pattern of language and they're just pattern matching. So an AI LLM like ChatGPT by itself is just spitting out a response. An AI agent is a decision making entity that senses inputs and provides outputs. So it can sense inputs through text, through data, through now, voice and video. But then it reasons, takes actions with certain tools, and it can provide different outputs. It can be multi-step processes, but it's essentially, doing things in that reasoning step in the middle that separates, like a chat bot from an AI agent.
Can you break apart what you mean by reasoning a little bit more, and feel free to get as technical as you want, and if I get lost, then I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions because that's what this thing is all about. But like, what the hell does reasoning mean? Because I do a lot of reasoning. Is it the same or?
Sure. So, traditional software systems, are just built like with a structure, like it goes from here to here. What an AI agent's reasoning does is it makes decisions, just fundamentally it makes decisions. So maybe you've given an AI agent, multiple tools, right? So, oh, you can look up information, you can book an appointment, you can, update a CRM, you can update a ticket, you can contact the help desk, right? Whatever. Maybe an agent has access to all of these tools, just like a human sitting at their computer would. And then when someone is interacting with the agent, or the agent's getting inputs, from a non-human interaction, like different triggers, but let's pretend it's a human interacting with it. The agent can use its prompt and instructions, and it can use its tools to determine the best course of action to take, right? So if someone's talking to it about resetting a bank password, maybe it's a customer service at a bank, it can reason based on its own tools, kind of the process that needs to be taken to resolve that problem. So a lot of these companies you see, OpenAI, et cetera, are coming out with both like language models as well as, in-house reasoning models. But in my mind, whether this is completely accurate or not, what separates a chatbot from an AI agent for me is the ability to get stuff done in the middle, the ability to, think through a problem, and the ability to have tools to output. So it's not just text input, text output, but it's text and maybe other data sources in. The agent can choose what they want to do, has access to external tools to do things, right? Which on a technical sense, it can be anything with an API, right? If you connect, any kind of API tool to that agent, it can then take action through software, et cetera, and then generate some text response output as a result.
Can you give an example of what somebody might use a chat GPT for, and then what the evolution of AI agents might allow them to do instead?
Sure. So when you're using ChatGPT, you're talking to something, right? They call it generative AI, right? So you're talking to ChatGPT and you can ask it, hey, write a blog post for me. Hey, look at this block of text and rewrite it and improve it, right? Write an email for me, blah, blah, blah. But it's basically generating text, right? So it's very transactional. You're logging into their interface and you're using it. What the future, I think, of AI agents can be is diverse, right? There are many different use cases. I've seen discussions where an AI agent, operates on the business end, or it operates on the individual's end interfacing with a business. An example of that is, I want to reschedule my flight, right? Instead of calling Delta, waiting online, talking through someone, I tell my AI agent, please reschedule a flight to the next available one that goes out. Then the AI agent does the rest of it. It contacts Delta, it waits, it evaluates my options, it does and handles everything like an assistant or someone would, and then gets back to me and says, yes, your flight was rescheduled, right? It can operate on the business end, like anything with a CRM. I think CRMs are a great use for agent because you've got these, contacts and leads and all this stuff. You've got to keep everything up to date. And most of these are open API where you can, integrate with them through programming. But if you can layer in an AI agent, like Salesforce is doing, it can essentially control your CRM in a bunch of different ways. It can keep it up to date. It can, monitor conversations that you're having with these prospects through email or text. It can sit in on meetings and create action item lists straight from that. It can help scheduling, right? It can help teams to schedule, whether it's employees or whether it's client meetings. It can manage task lists, all kinds of things. AI agents are essentially taking software from, you've got to specify the inputs and the outputs, and you've got to use the software to, it can understand the point of the software. It doesn't actually understand, but it can reason through the point of the software, and it can accomplish through common language what you want to with that software by itself. Further just kind of expanding on what you and your business can accomplish.
Thank you for that explanation. I was thinking while you were talking that when I'm utilizing just regular AI, and I've had some conversations on this podcast about things like hallucinations, which I am still going to be a stick in the mud and say I think we should use incorrect extrapolations or something that is less human and more. It's clear that there's something related to how it's coded that is creating the problems. But in any case, when you're using just a straight up artificial intelligence system, specificity is so important because it wants to kind of wane depending on how direct and exact you are, slightly away from the target. Like you're shooting an arrow, if you're not exactly specific, you're going to get a little bit
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
off. Can you talk a little bit about how, when you go into an agent situation, how they maintain all of those different tracks? Because if they're doing multiple things off of one input, are they getting less specific? And is there more room for error or imperfection?
Yeah, so I can't speak to how all the companies out there building these AI agents are solving the problems because I think everyone's doing differently, right? I'll give you examples of what we're doing, right? So, and let's use our conversational AI agent as an example, right? So you contact our conversational AI agent basically is customer service user support for a company. So the way that we kind of solve those problems is we provide instructions to the AI agent dynamically based on the context of the conversation. So we'll build an AI agent and say, okay, here's instructions that you're getting every time that you should always know. Here's instructions based on the category of the conversation, what it is we're talking about. And here's instructions that you get based on the step that the conversation is at. And then here's instructions based on contextual things that may or may not come up. So we're kind of combining those in different ways to provide dynamic instructions. So at runtime, our AI agent will have different objectives, right? So it may know that overall the objective is to convert this lead, this prospect, into a booked appointment, but maybe it understands that the step that it's at, its objective now is to collect information like their name, have they used this before, what's their budget, whatever it is. And so different objectives, right? You talked also about hallucinations. So we manage those as well. One step back, the way that hallucinations work is because AI is pattern matching conversations. It's not trying to be right, it's trying to fill in the blank. If I say the price of this apple is, right, you're going to say $4, $2, $800, right? You care about being right. You know $800 is ridiculous. The AI doesn't care about being right. It just knows that a price goes there, and its only job is to put a price in there. And so that's where it hallucinates. It makes things up, right? If you ask me about something that doesn't exist, I won't answer because I'd be making it up. The AI understands what the right answer would look like, and whether it's true or not, it will give you what the right answer looks like, right? So that's fundamentally where a lot of these hallucinations and LLMs come from. The way that we solve that is we separate the response that it's giving from the accuracy of the data. And what I mean by that is when you're talking with one of our AI agents, it's doing a bunch of things, but you ask it a question, and let's say you're asking it for a price. How much does it repair my iPhone 15? It does a bunch of things and it spits out a price, 150. Well, we separate that, hey, I want to respond to this question function from, is the price right? So after it spits out 150, before we send that message back to the user, we run it through our verification system, which says, hey, is this right? Which is essentially it goes back to the AI and it says, all right, we've got a price quote here for an iPhone 15. It says 150. Is this right or not? And when it doesn't have to reply to the question, when all it's looking at is, yes, it's doing one job, is this right price? Then it gets it right every time. And it'll say, no, that's not the right price. It's $20. And then we feed that in a feedback loop back to the drafter, which then says, okay, yeah, it was $20. It corrects itself and it sends the right message out instead of the wrong message. And we use that type of system to correct all kinds of problems. But for us, that is we call it the verification bots, right? Which is that system in which we're removing hallucinations to maintain quality before it goes out. So that's kind of how we solve that problem with AI agents.
It sounds like you, having been somebody that is very focused on high level, correct process, have considered how your systems would do process at a high level incorrectly.
Yeah, I mean that's what I love about it. That's why I went into it. Right after I exited my second company, the marketing agency, I focused on stuff like this book, which is Find Your Why. Right, I really wanted to say, okay, well, what's my next thing that I want to do? And that's where I really spent a lot of time figuring out my purpose. Which, as I mentioned, I really think what I do best is building and improving systems and processes using technology. Which is AI is the greatest, newest, best tool out there today for companies to improve upon that. So that's why I got into that space. That's why I love building some of these systems that I'm describing. That's why I give long-winded answers to questions like you just asked, is because I get excited talking about how we're solving this problem.
I get excited listening to you describe that answer because I'm no expert, right? But I've been learning in this space and listening to not people necessarily like you, because I haven't come across as many people that are so focused on the detail. There are a lot of people that are focused on, before we went live, we were talking a little bit about some of the things that you're doing, and you're like, well, we're really focused on making sure that when we prioritize marketing, all of that stuff goes really well. A lot of people just freaking come out with the marketing. Here's the marketing, and they're not as focused on there being a good product to deliver.
Well,
And
you need those people too. I mean, I firmly believe that, you need marketing. It's not it's all salespeople are bad. It's, why do any of us buy luxury items? Because we feel good about the purchase. And, those people that you're describing, they're the marketing people, they're the hype people. Maybe those are the visionary CEOs. Absolutely need those people. Those are the types of partners that I'm looking for now, because as you're kind of describing, I'm the product guy. I want to make what we do the best and the greatest, and I want to make it sure it functions and the plumbing is terrific. But yeah, absolutely need both. But you're right, I'm a little more of that second aspect.
Well, I get excited hearing you go into the detail because it I've heard other people not have the answers to the detail, and to me, not knowing enough to know what I don't know, it's unnerving because I'm immersing myself in this. And my grandma is not immersing herself in this. And you know what I mean? There
Sure.
are people that are either going to be I value and get excited when people have the detail, have considered the detail, and care about the detail, because that's when things go right. That's when football teams win the Super Bowl. That's when pitchers pitch perfect games. That's when people, bat over 400. That's when really good shit happens. So I get excited, and I don't think long-winded answer. I think specific, direct, and thoughtful. I got another question for you. And I have to be thoughtful at time, unfortunately, because I want to continue the conversation, but I have just a stacked Tuesday today, so we'll have to do another one, and I'm sure we will. But I want to fit a couple more questions in here. So you talked a little bit about how you have your system, there are feedback loops. It sounds like you guys have done some of the coding, like inside of the box, so to speak, of what you would hope an individual would do with their own AI and their own due diligence process to make sure they're getting accurate information. But you've taken all of that need to know how to use AI out of the equation, put it inside of the organization of the agent or the system, and allow your expertise in process and systems, or your team's expertise in process and systems, be the thing that allows that agent system to let the user have a really good, effective, accurate experience. Does that sound like I'm with you or understanding?
Yeah, so we're trying to build that system that allows you to control your AI agent and have the controls necessary to create a quality agent, right? To be able to add on tools to get done what you need, to be able to have that plumbing for the feedback loops in place so that you can correct problems, right? I think the way that our system is set up today is you still need a pretty good understanding of an AI agent to actually use it. And that's why what we offer today, it's less of just a SaaS product and more of a managed service using our platform, right? Because just like you described about, your grandma, she's not getting into the weeds and the details. We believe that the majority of the clients that we're going out there today, they're not trying to be an AI expert. They're trying to use AI to run their business more effectively, right? And so we want to come in with the platform and us understanding AI and being the experts to say, look, we're going to use our platform. You can log in and make all these changes yourself, but we're going to help you manage and set up and keep track of your AI agent, right? To best utilize its functionality to accomplish your goal. We've already started adding features so that as we continue to grow, non-technical users, non-AI people can get more and more out of our system independently. But our primary goal is, let's make sure our AI agents are as functional and as capable and as high quality as possible. And we'll make sure everything's managed well. And then we'll slowly move more and more of that capability as we can onto the users. For example, one of the things that we're working on now is a learn mode. Right. So I described how we provide like dynamic instructions to the AI agent. Well, us or the user could log in and make all the changes you want and all those different steps, but maybe it gets confusing for the user, the client, the company. And so we've enabled a mode where you can talk directly to your agent and say, look, you did this poorly. I want you to do this next time, or here's something you need to improve. And it will rewrite its own instructions based on the conversation, the feedback that you're having. So you no longer need to be an AI expert prompt engineer, or how do I write these things, as you said, very specific and precise, because the AI is its own expert AI prompt engineer. You're just kind of telling it what to do. And so the more that we can roll out features like that, the more it makes the users a little more independent, right? But we're trying to, at the end of the day, accomplish what's best for the company, and then as much as possible, empower the users to do it themselves.
To your point, the user being empowered to do it themselves. And now this is probably something you saw in the people development world. I'm going to talk about a book also. I don't have it up anywhere, but somebody had me read a couple people, one tremendous mentor, few tremendous mentors, but well, the 1 Minute Manager is kind of standing out to me here in the idea that you want to give people the competence to not need you. You want to give people the knowledge and competence to be able to do it on their own. And it is efficient for a business to be able to reach out to you, and say, hey, I'm having this problem. I love that this is a managed service and I'm able to have some kind of support with this, or we're able to sit down and, talk about what the system's doing X amount of time a year or whatever. But what's better is I don't need to stop what I'm doing to reach out to you. What's better is I can just freaking keep rocking, And I think that's part of some of the value of the agent systems is that autonomy that it gives the entrepreneur or the individual to be able to execute large amounts based on what they know needs to happen. And in my world, in people development, if I could take a problem or a moment in time and turn it into a learning experience, then the next time that problem happened, that node in my operation was that much stronger and could handle it with maybe not needing to utilize my support or my guidance or my knowledge. It seems like that's kind of the same thing here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, the AI agent system is designed to just streamline so much of what the company's doing. But yeah, when you need to fill out a support ticket or you need to contact support, it definitely slows down what you're doing. But when you can, tweak things and adjust them yourself within the system, you just keep going right along, right? And so we want to build as many of those types of features in that allow you to adjust things quickly and easily on the fly, right? Whether that comes through training data, where we're just creating more and more automated feedback loops that say, hey, this was the right way to do things. Next time, this node is stronger, right? Whether you can just like thumbs up or thumbs down something to provide that feedback, right? But the more of those types of systems you can build in, the stronger that it just gets over time.
Awesome. We got about 5 minutes left here. I want to make sure that you get a chance to talk about how people can get involved with you, because I think that small businesses, that small, medium startups, all of them, if they're not using artificial intelligence or starting to figure out how to, it could be it could be left behind. So I want to make sure to give you space for that, but I also want to hit just at a high level, how are AI agents going to impact people's businesses, and what should they do to kind of make positive there? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think AI agents are going to revolutionize how business is run, right? The same way that software did and the internet did and technology did. I mean, it's you're basically taking software and allowing it to reason and think for itself, right? You're creating a new class of employee. You've got on-site, you've got virtual, and now you've got AI, right? And it's just going to it's going to automate some jobs and business functions, but it's more so going to empower a whole new realm of things that are possible to get done, right? As I'm building and coding some of our systems, what I realize is, well, I'll say this: when I'm translating a business's process into how the AI agent's going to get it done, I realize that we don't have the limitation of human labor, right? So if a human, let's say you've got a 100-page user manual that you need to edit, right? And the user's like, hey, on page 2, can you update this process? Sure, yeah, the AI can go in there and it can update that process on page 2, but why not have the AI review the other 100 pages to see if anything else in there conflicts with that one thing they edited, right? A human, that would take forever. It's like you want to update something on page 2, don't read 100 pages to figure it out, but the AI can read 100 pages like that and figure out, does anything conflict with the change that you just put in, right? And so it really extends your possibility. It changes your flow because of how that labor is not as restrictive as it was. So a lot of things that you can build and use. I think for us, what we're looking for now.
Can I
Sorry,
cut you off? I'm
absolutely.
having this. I'm having one jump out of me here. So I'm imagining like an AI agent, like an agent system, is like I'm driving my own car, and then I'm imagining like back in the day, people having to like shovel coal into the train to make the train go. The difference between like I have this thing that I'm using to make me efficient, agile, and useful versus in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, if you wanted to make a motorized vehicle go forward, you had to get a handful of people to make the thing go. Is
Yeah.
that am I correct? Is that a crazy juxtaposition? A little
No,
bit.
I mean, I think that's, evidencing technology kind of advancing industry, right? When you come out with these groundbreaking technologies, it just can revolutionize what you can do. And yeah, AI is a huge hype right now, and I hate using, terms like revolutionize, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, it's true. I think over the next, 5, 10, 15 years, all businesses are going to be using more and more of these solutions in all kinds of day-to-day purposes, right? All kinds of use cases. And I think right now for us, use cases is what we're looking for. So we have conversational AI agents live, and I think that provides, for a number of reasons, I won't get into it, 2 minutes left. I think conversational AI provides fantastic customer and user support, but we're looking for companies with additional use cases that we can help build and scale for them, right? Turning unstructured data into structured output. That's something that AI does very well, whether it's analyzing documents, fielding intake forms in unstructured ways, all kinds of stuff. Data processing, data handling, streamlining communication, all kinds of stuff. We're looking for just more and more companies that want to build AI into their process, because we really want to be where the rubber meets the road for some of this stuff. So that when you say my company's using AI, you don't mean I'm going to ChatGPT and I'm talking to it, but you mean we've integrated AI systems and agents into our workflow processes that are now, 100xing our capabilities for scale, that are augmenting our human agents and allowing them to get much more done and be more productive, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's where anyone who wants to get in touch, fill out a form on our website, whatever, call us, email us, get in touch, and, we'll have a conversation about what you're looking to accomplish with AI.
Fantastic. I've got one more question for you, but I may need to hold it. Should I hold it?
It's up to you. You're
Are you
you're the judge on time here.
are you okay to go over maybe 5 minutes?
Oh yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, cool. Because I really want to ask this question. So you have both sides of the understanding of the situation. You know people well and how to upskill and utilize them and make them, be successful parts of processes. And you also know, where do we need to put this machinery? Where do we need to put these automated systems to make efficient, business processes? Can you talk a little bit about how you'd recommend businesses maximize their people talent and use their people talent as they do bring in these systems that are taking some of what their day to day might be on a regular basis, especially in those instances where maybe you have good people that are productive and useful that you don't want to lose, but things are changing.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's all about having good people, right? The reason to use AI is to free up those good people's time so they can do more, right? It's like if you've got the best brain surgeon in the world who's also the best lawnmower in the world, using his time most effectively is not going to be, mowing his own lawn. It's going to be doing more brain surgeries and having the lawn mowed elsewhere, right? If you can utilize AI to do X, Y, and Z, use these low cost technology tools that effectively get things done for as much as you can, and then use your good people to do even more. Use your good people to provide inputs and outputs to these tools. If you take someone who's spending 20 hours a week doing what they do best, and their other 20 hours a week, managing this or filing that report or, processing this data, get rid of all that and have them spend more time on the human component, right? In the financial services industry, I think like data analysts are one of the huge roles that they anticipate that these AI systems are going to solve, right? When you come out of college and you're going into the banking and the finance world, you're working crazy hours. You're eventually hoping to make, boku bucks, but you're doing jobs that AI can do. Well, spend that time investing in yourself and building the skill sets, that can get you to that point quicker, right? The more that you can use a tool, the more that you can get done as an individual. So having good people, maximizing the human talent is about maximizing the time they can spend, right? I've always told my managers as I was building them up is find someone, underneath you that can start taking more and more work off your plate, right? Because you're a valuable employee to me and I don't want you busy all the time. I want you to empower the people, your subordinates or whatever, empower them to do more, to do your job, and then you find something else even more important to do, right? And that's how you build things up. You build up the people underneath you, and that arises the whole ship. And it's the same with AI. The more tools, the better tools you use, the more that you're going to use your good people effectively.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Um, God, man, I can't wait to put that in as many places as I possibly can get it. So thank you, Matt. Thank you for coming on the show. If you want to take one last, I know you kind of gave like a, hey, you can go to the website. What types of businesses could work with you? What types of businesses are you looking to work with? For is the wrong word. When you're looking for like good partnerships, what do those look like? Kind of give the gambit of what Sheila AI is looking for in terms of business partners and customers, and then I'll take us out of here.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're looking for kind of any business who wants to utilize AI in their business, right? I'd say that we're not specifically going after enterprise level, right? But I'd say any company between, 5 to 500 employees is kind of, the problems we're looking to solve. Different problems for different industries and company sizes, but if you're trying to utilize AI to solve problems in your business, we'd love to have a conversation to see what you're trying to solve, right? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to plug our AI agents into other AI tools that are out there, right? So part of our AI system may be we're going to do X, Y, and Z. We're going to connect to these other tools to help you have that unified solution. As far as partners go, distribution partners maybe is what we're looking for. People that want to offer this, right? I think it's great. One of our partners that we have now is a marketing agency, and they essentially white label our solution, but they've got great relationships with their clients that they're helping do marketing for. And they say, look, in addition to generating leads for you, we can help use AI to convert your leads into booked appointments, using the conversational AI agent, right? They've already spent the time developing that relationship with the client, and it's a perfect kind of add-on for that service. So that's a revenue generating partner that we generate revenue for them. But right, if you've got clients that you think could benefit from these types of AI solutions, you've invested the time and effort building the relationship with them, let's talk to see if we can help you extend what you're doing for them with our AI solution. So Sheila.ai, I mean, just come to our website, fill out any kind of form, any way we've got to contact us, and we'll get in touch. I think there's a calendar link directly on there. I think you can book, a discovery or an intro call or whatever it's called directly from our site.
Very cool. Matt, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your story. Hope to do it again sometime.
Absolutely, Zach. It was good talking to you.
Awesome. If folks haven't checked out tryunitystrategies.com, go on there. The best way to see the different things that we do is to check out our events page and to check out the About section. Looking forward to our next Tuesday episode. I think this felt pretty good. And everybody have a great middle of the week instead of weekend. Bye, everybody.